Let's get into today's story. My name is Maddie Carter. I'm 31, and for a long time I believed being the dependable daughter meant quietly fixing problems before they turned into disasters. For 6 years, I covered my parents' mortgage from Seattle while they stayed back in Oregon, telling myself it was temporary, that they were just going through a rough patch. I never asked for praise. I never asked for anything in return. I just didn't want them to lose the house we called family. The day everything snapped didn't start with a screaming match or a dramatic confession. It started with paperwork. I was at their place helping organize documents because my mom kept missing payments and couldn't find statements on her phone. I opened a drawer looking for a medical bill and a legal folder slid forward like it had been waiting for me. Estate plan. I didn't think. I just opened it, expecting boring forms. Instead, I saw the one thing you never expect to find when you've been paying someone else's bills for years: their will. And there, in plain English, was the future they'd written without me. The house, the retirement money, the savings, all of it going to my brother. My name wasn't anywhere, not even as a backup. My hands went cold, but I walked into the living room anyway, holding the pages like they weighed 100 pounds. I asked them, as calmly as I could, how they could look me in the eye for 6 years and still plan to leave me nothing. They didn't panic. They didn't apologize. My mom just sighed like I was making her day harder and said, "You don't need an inheritance, Maddie. You're doing fine." I smiled. Not because it didn't hurt, but because in that moment I finally understood who I was to them. Not a daughter, a solution. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. No hello, no how are you, just, property taxes are due. Send it today. Like I was still their ATM. I stared at that message for a long time, then typed one simple reply, and that's when the real panic started. If you've ever been treated like the responsible one only when someone needs your money, stay with me. Because the moment I stopped paying, their entire plan began to fall apart. I didn't send another dollar that day. I didn't argue. I didn't write a paragraph. And I didn't let my emotions do the typing. I just set my phone down and opened my banking app. Not to pay them, but to look at what I'd already done. 6 years of transfers. 6 years of monthly confirmations. Sometimes on the first, sometimes early because my mom would text, "Just in case, can you send it a little sooner?" I scrolled until my thumb ached. It wasn't just money. It was weekends I didn't take off. It was freelance projects I accepted when I was exhausted. It was me saying no to vacations and new furniture so the roof over their head stayed secure. And the whole time, they were planning a future where my role ended the second the ink dried. So I made a quiet decision that felt louder than any fight I could have started. I turned off the automatic transfer I had set up years ago. I canceled it like I was canceling a subscription I no longer recognized. Then I went back to my mom's text. "Property taxes are due. Send it today." The entitlement in that sentence was almost impressive. I took one deep breath and replied, "Ryan can handle it, since the house is going to be his." I didn't add an emoji. I didn't soften it. I didn't say, "Love you." I hit send and watched the little delivered mark appear, and for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. It lasted about 90 seconds. My phone started ringing. First my mom, then my dad, then my mom again. When I didn't pick up, the texts started stacking like dominoes. "Maddie, answer me. We need to talk. This isn't funny. Stop being like this." I kept my phone face down on the counter and made coffee like my world wasn't shaking. Because here's the thing. They wanted a conversation where I explained myself, apologized, and then paid. They didn't want to understand. They wanted to reset me back into my job. Around lunchtime, my dad finally left a voicemail. His tone wasn't scared yet. It was irritated like I'd forgotten a chore. He said they were busy, the deadline was close, and I needed to do the right thing. The right thing. I almost laughed. I texted back once, "I'm not discussing this. You made your choice. Please contact the person you chose." Then I muted the thread. I went to work, answered emails, joined a meeting, and tried to pretend my chest didn't feel tight. But every so often, I'd glance at my phone and see the number of missed calls climb. It wasn't the amount of money that made them spiral. It was the idea that I could say no, because if I wasn't paying, that meant the will wasn't just a document anymore. It was a promise they'd have to live with, starting now. By the evening, the messages stopped sounding like demands and started sounding like a family trying to control the narrative. My mom sent a softer text, "Can we please talk like adults?" I didn't answer. Then my dad texted, "You're being selfish?" I still didn't answer. I knew if I engaged, they'd drag me into the same loop I'd been trapped in for years, where my feelings became a problem to be fixed and their needs became the emergency. I was standing in my kitchen in Seattle, staring at the rain on the window, when a new name popped up on my screen. My brother. His message came in like he was doing me a favor. "Maddie, stop being dramatic. It's just paperwork. You're really going to punish Mom and Dad over a will?" I read it twice, waiting for a single sentence that sounded like empathy. There wasn't one. I could practically hear him saying it from the comfort of their couch, probably surrounded by energy drink cans, acting like he was the reasonable one. I typed back, "If it's just paperwork, then paying the property taxes should be easy too." There was a pause, and then he responded with the kind of confidence you only get when you've never had consequences. "You know I don't have that kind of money right now. You make good money. You're fine. Just help them like you always do." That line hit me harder than I expected, because it wasn't new. It was the family motto. I'm fine. I'm always fine. Fine means invisible. Fine means useful. Fine means I can be ignored until a bill is due. I replied, "You're 26. If you're old enough to be the only heir, you're old enough to handle a tax bill." Almost immediately, my phone rang again. My dad this time. I let it go to voicemail. He left one, and his voice had changed. He wasn't just annoyed. He was angry that I was making him feel powerless. He said I was acting entitled, that nobody owed me anything, and that family helps family without keeping score. That part was almost funny because the only person keeping score was me, and only because they forced me to. My mom followed up with a text that tried to sound loving while still twisting the knife. "We didn't do this to hurt you. Ryan needs more support. You're strong. You always have been. Family takes care of each other." I stared at the word strong. They used it like a compliment, but it was really a leash. Strong meant I wasn't allowed to have needs. Strong meant I wasn't allowed to be disappointed. Strong meant I was expected to carry everyone else quietly and smile while I did it. I finally replied, "Family is a two-way street. You wrote me out like I don't matter. Then you text me like I'm still the plan. You don't get both." A minute later, my brother sent another message. Colder now. "You're really going to blow up the family over money." I didn't even want the house, Kyle. I wanted the truth. I wanted the respect. I wanted them to stop treating my help like it was automatic. So I typed the simplest sentence I could, the one they never expected to read from me. "I'm not paying for a future I'm not included in." And that's when the tone changed completely, because once they realized guilt wasn't working, they moved to the next weapon. Pressure. Desperation. And the kind of panic that makes people do reckless things. The next morning, they stopped pretending it was about feelings. They made it about transactions. I opened my phone and saw a payment request waiting for me, like a bill from a stranger. $3,012.17. No explanation. No message. Just a cold little button that said pay. For a second, I just stared at the number. The weirdly exact amount made it feel even more insulting, like they'd sat there doing math and decided my bank account was the solution, same as always. I hit decline. Then I took a screenshot. Not because I was planning revenge, but because something in me finally clicked into self-protection. If they were going to paint me as the villain, I wanted proof of what they were actually doing. Within minutes, my mom called again. I didn't pick up. She left a voicemail that sounded like she was trying to cry on command. "Honey, please, we're in trouble. We just need you to cover this and then we'll talk. We'll figure it out." It was always after I paid, after I fixed it, after they got what they wanted. My dad followed with a text that was pure manipulation. "Are you really going to let us lose the house?" I typed back, "You won't be homeless, you'll be inconvenienced." The silence that followed was loud. Then my brother texted, "Maddie, come on. Just do it this once." I asked him, "What exactly are you doing today besides texting me?" He didn't answer that. Instead, he sent, "I'm trying. I'm looking for work. You know it's hard right now." He said it like he was talking about a temporary setback, not a lifestyle. And for the first time, I realized the real reason my parents had chosen him. It wasn't because he needed help. It was because he would never challenge them. He would never set boundaries. He would never stop being dependent, which meant they'd always have control. Meanwhile, I was the one who could walk away. So they'd decided to punish independence by calling it selfishness. Around lunchtime, my mom sent another message, and this one was different. It wasn't guilt or anger. It was panic pretending to be casual. "Can you at least call me? I need to explain something." Right under it, she attached a photo. I could tell she hadn't meant to, because it was the kind of thing you only send when you're desperate and not thinking. A letter on official-looking paper with a bold heading and a big red line that jumped out even on a phone screen. Delinquency notice, past due, final reminder. My stomach dropped, not because I felt sorry for them, but because I suddenly saw the full picture. They weren't short on options. They were short on willingness. They didn't want to touch their savings. They didn't want to sell anything. They didn't want to change their spending. They wanted me to keep the house stable so they could keep living like nothing was wrong, and so my brother could keep living like life was a game. I zoomed in on the letter and saw the date. This wasn't a surprise bill that appeared overnight. They'd been behind. They'd been behind while still accepting my money, and they were only panicking now because I had finally stopped. I took another screenshot, then I typed one sentence to my mom. "This notice is not my emergency. Call your heir." After that, the messages started coming faster, and the tone turned sharper, like they were realizing they couldn't talk me back into my old role. And when persuasion failed, they did what controlling people always do. They showed up. That evening, I was halfway through heating up leftovers when my phone rang from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something told me to answer. A calm voice said, "Hi, this is the front desk. Your family is downstairs. They're saying it's urgent and they're asking to be let up." My stomach tightened, not because I was afraid, but because I knew exactly what this was. When people like my parents feel control slipping, they don't ask. They appear. I walked to the window and looked down at the entrance. There they were, clustered by the doors like they owned the place. My mom pacing, my dad standing stiff, arms crossed, and my brother hanging back, staring at his phone like he was bored, like this was just another problem someone else would solve. I told the receptionist, "Please don't let them up. I'll come down." By the time I reached the lobby, my mom's face lit up with relief, like she'd won something just by getting me in the same room. She stepped forward fast, hands out. "Maddie, thank God. We need to talk." I didn't hug her. I didn't smile. I stopped a few feet away, right where the security camera could see everything, right where strangers could hear enough to keep everyone on their best behavior. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice level. My dad cut in immediately, acting like I'd committed some kind of crime. We drove all the way here because you're not answering like an adult. You can't just abandon your parents. My mom's eyes got shiny. We're scared, honey. This is serious. I looked past them at my brother. He finally glanced up and shrugged, like, you know how they are. That shrug was the entire story of my life. I took a breath. You didn't come here to talk, I said. You came here to pressure me. My mom's voice rose, just enough to draw attention. You're punishing us. Over paperwork. Over something that hasn't even happened yet. That's when I felt the anger sharpen into something clean. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm responding to you. You planned a future where I get nothing, then you texted me like I still have to pay for it. My dad's jaw clenched. Nobody owes you an inheritance. You're acting entitled. My mom nodded fast. Yes, like she'd been waiting to say it again. You're doing fine, Maddie. You have a good job. You don't need it. Ryan needs stability. I held her gaze. If I don't need it, then you don't need my money either. The air went still for a second. Then my dad stepped closer, invading my space. Don't be petty. Don't hold grudges. We raised you. We paid for your college. The way he said it, you'd think they were talking about a gift they gave me yesterday, not a debt they'd been collecting on for years with interest. I nodded slowly, and I paid your mortgage for 6 years. My mom flinched like the word mortgage was a slap. My brother finally spoke, trying to sound calm and mature. Maddie, look, I didn't ask for any of this. This isn't even about me. I turned to him. You didn't ask for it, but you sure accepted it. You're the only person on that will. You're the one they're protecting. So if it's not about you, then why are you here? His cheeks flushed. He glanced at my mom, then my dad, like he wanted someone to feed him the right line. My mom rushed to cover for him. He's your brother. You're supposed to help each other. That sentence used to work on me. It used to make me feel guilty for even thinking about myself. But standing there in that lobby, watching them form the same triangle around me they'd used my whole life, I realized something simple. They weren't asking me to help my brother. They were asking me to keep him helpless so they could keep feeling needed. I shook my head. You don't get to say family takes care of each other when you've written me out of the family on paper, I said. My dad snapped, Stop dramatizing. It's just a plan. It's not real yet. I looked him straight in the eye. A will is a plan for who matters when you're gone. And you made it very clear who matters. My mom's voice cracked, switching tactics again. We're going to lose the house. Please, just cover the taxes and we'll sit down. We'll talk. We'll fix everything. I almost laughed, because the pattern was so obvious it was embarrassing. Pay first. Talk later. I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone, not to show them anything private, but to make a point. Do you want me to read the total out loud? I asked quietly. 6 years of transfers, month after month. Do you want the lobby to hear the number you've taken from me while telling everyone I'm selfish? My mom's eyes widened. My dad's face stiffened. And my brother suddenly looked smaller. Like he'd realized this wasn't a game where he could respawn after losing. My dad lowered his voice, trying to salvage control. Don't embarrass us. That was it. The truth finally slipped out. It was never about love. It was about image. I nodded once. Then stop trying to use me. I'm not paying another dime. From now on, you contact the person you chose. My mom reached for my arm and I stepped back. Don't, I said. This is the boundary. My brother muttered. Maddie, come on. I stared at him. You're the heir. Act like it. Then I turned to the receptionist, who had been politely pretending not to listen, and said, If they cause any trouble, please call security. I looked back at my parents one last time. You made your choice. Live with it. I walked away without running, without shaking, without giving them the emotional scene they came for. When I got back upstairs, my phone lit up with a flood of messages. I didn't read them. I sent one final text into the group thread. You are not entitled to me, my money, or my peace. Contact your heir. Then I blocked every number. And for a few seconds, the silence felt like oxygen. The next morning, I woke up to a different kind of attack. Not calls, not demands. Public shame. A friend from back home messaged me, "Are you okay? I saw your mom's post." My stomach sank. I opened Facebook and there it was. My mom's words dressed up like a prayer. Like she was a saint being abandoned. She wrote about how heartbreaking it was when children turn their backs on their parents after everything they've sacrificed. How some people only care about money, and how she never thought she'd be treated this way by her own daughter. My dad commented underneath, "We did our best. Some people are just ungrateful." Then he added a line that felt like a direct jab. "We paid for her education, and this is how she repays us." And then my brother reposted it with his own caption about true family, love over greed, and how real loyalty means showing up when it's hard. He didn't mention my name, but he didn't have to. Everyone knew who the villain was supposed to be. For a few minutes, I just sat there staring at the screen, watching strangers react to a story that wasn't real. Old neighbors leaving sad emojis, distant relatives writing, "Call your parents. You only get one family." People I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions about my character, and I understood why my dad had told me not to embarrass them in the lobby. They weren't afraid of losing the house. They were afraid of losing control of the narrative. I could have stayed silent. The old version of me would have stayed silent. I would have swallowed it, paid the bill, and let them keep telling the world they were wonderful parents with a difficult daughter. But I had already learned the rule. If you let people lie about you, they get braver next time. So I didn't curse them out. I didn't call them names. I did something they couldn't fight. I told the truth, calmly, with receipts. I wrote one post, just facts, in order. I said I've paid their mortgage for 6 years. I said I found their will accidentally and discovered I was left out completely while my brother was left everything. I said the next day my mom texted me demanding money for property taxes with no hello, no apology, just a bill. I attached screenshots of the payment requests with the amounts visible but personal information covered. I added one line that I knew would land with every person reading it. I love my parents, but I'm not a family ATM, and I'm not funding a future that excludes me. Then I hit post and put my phone down, expecting my hands to shake. They didn't. Within minutes, the comments started shifting. People who had been sympathetic to my mom went quiet. Friends from high school wrote, "Maddie, I had no idea." A cousin commented, "Wait, you paid the mortgage for 6 years." Aunt Diane, my dad's sister, dropped a comment that felt like a door slamming. She wrote, "She's telling the truth. I've seen the transfers. She's been helping them for years." Then she added, "Stop using your daughter and stop enabling your son." That one comment changed everything. It wasn't just my voice anymore. It was someone from inside the family backing me up. My mom's post suddenly didn't look like a tragedy. It looked like manipulation. My dad tried to salvage it, replying that money shouldn't matter, that family is bigger than paperwork. But people started asking the question they didn't want to answer. If money doesn't matter, why did you demand it the next morning? My brother tried to act noble, commenting that he wanted peace and that I was airing private matters. Someone replied, "Then why are you the only heir?" My phone started buzzing again, but this time it wasn't strangers. It was them. Calls from blocked numbers, texts from new numbers. A message that popped up from my mom that made me laugh out loud because it was so predictable. Please take it down. You're humiliating us." There it was again. Not, I'm sorry. Not, we were wrong. Just, you're embarrassing us. My dad followed with a message that was pure threat. If you don't delete that, you're going to regret it. My brother sent one too, angrier than I'd ever seen him. You're ruining our family. You're a traitor. I read it once, then I blocked the new numbers too. I didn't respond, because the truth was already doing the job. And somewhere in Oregon, I knew they were realizing something terrifying. If the world could see who they really were, then guilt and shame wouldn't bring my money back. Only consequences would. They didn't fix anything with apologies because they didn't have any. What they tried instead was panic management. For a few days after my post, they went quiet online, like they were waiting for the attention to die down. But bills don't wait for your reputation to recover. Late fees started stacking on the property taxes. Then the mortgage servicer sent another notice, the kind that doesn't care about family speeches. My mom texted from yet another new number. Softer now. Almost sweet. "Honey, can we please talk privately? We're figuring it out." I didn't reply. I wasn't interested in private anymore. Private was where they trapped me. A couple weeks later, Aunt Diane called me and told me what my parents weren't saying out loud. They'd been behind longer than they admitted. They had savings, but they didn't want to touch it because it would mean admitting they'd been irresponsible. They wanted me to keep paying so they could keep pretending everything was fine. And my brother, the chosen heir, still didn't have a plan. He had excuses. Reality arrived fast. They couldn't keep up with the mortgage without my transfers. They tried to borrow from relatives, but once the receipts were public, the story about the ungrateful daughter stopped working. People stopped offering sympathy and started offering advice they didn't want to hear. Sell the house, downsize, budget, get a job. My brother didn't like those options. He liked the old option, me. But I was gone from the equation. By the end of the next month, the house was listed, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. They put on a brave face and told people it was a fresh start, but everyone knew what it really was. The first offer that came in was lower than they hoped, because rushed sales rarely get the dream price. They took it anyway. Watching the photos show up online felt strange, like looking at a childhood memory through glass. I didn't celebrate their loss. I just recognized the truth. They didn't lose the house because I was cruel. They lost the house because they built their entire stability on my silence and my wallet. When the sale closed, my brother had to move out with them into a small rental on the edge of town, the kind he used to joke about. His streaming setup got shoved into a corner. The internet wasn't as fast. The space wasn't his. And for the first time, he couldn't coast on comfort while calling other people dramatic. He picked up a part-time job at a big box store, then complained to anyone who would listen that it was beneath him. But nobody was listening anymore. Not after years of watching him be protected while I paid. My parents also got smaller, not physically, but emotionally. Without the house and the image, the power drained out of them. They stopped posting quotes about family. They stopped demanding. They stopped pretending they were in charge. Once, my mom sent me a message that wasn't a bill. It said, "I didn't think it would go this far." I stared at it for a long time. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing to honesty I'd ever gotten. I didn't answer. Not because I wanted them to suffer, but because I finally understood a lesson I wish someone had taught me when I was younger. Love without boundaries isn't love, it's permission. And when you teach people that your kindness is automatic, they stop seeing it as kindness. They see it as something they're owed. I used to think being a good daughter meant absorbing every unfair thing quietly. Now I know being a healthy adult means protecting your peace, even from family. Especially from family, because family is supposed to be the place where your efforts are valued, not exploited. If someone only calls you when they need money, they're not asking for help. They're maintaining a system where you exist to carry them. Cutting them off didn't make me heartless. It made me free. In the months after, I focused on work, on friendships that felt mutual, on building a life that didn't revolve around other people's chaos. I kept my boundaries firm and my guilt small. And every time I felt that old instinct to fix everything for them, I reminded myself of the will, not the paper, the message. They showed me exactly how they planned to treat me long term, and I finally believed them. So here's the lesson I want to leave you with. Being strong doesn't mean being used. Being responsible doesn't mean being sacrificed. And being family doesn't give anyone the right to write you out with one hand and demand your support with the other. You can love people and still say no. You can care and still step back. Sometimes the healthiest revenge isn't a dramatic confrontation. It's a calm boundary that forces everyone else to grow up. What would you have done in my place? Have you ever been treated like the family ATM? Tell me in the comments because I promise you're not the only one. Thank you for listening. With me personally, I think the ending wasn't about punishment. It was about finally choosing self-respect and peace. I felt proud of her for staying calm, using the truth instead of drama, and setting a boundary that couldn't be negotiated. To me, the most satisfying part wasn't watching them panic. It was watching her stop being the family ATM and start protecting her future. Sometimes love needs limits, or it turns into control. What about you? Do you think she did the right thing, or would you have handled it differently?